Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Kavinsky's Tutorials. Today I'm looking at Mela 3's Midi module. So I've got 5 copies of ANY by Nikolozi to give away. Details of how to win are in the pinned comment. Thanks a lot to Nikolozi for that. Yeah, check out the pinned comment for the details. You've got to be a subscriber. You've got to like the video, write a comment, and the winners will be picked in 2 days. In your comment, please write which app you'd like to win. Okay, so like I say, Mela 3 has 3 different aspects to it. One is the synth, and I'm not going to make this video on the synth, but I just want to point out, what a beautiful interface. Nikolozi puts so much thought into his apps, it's great. So you can choose exactly what you want to see on screen. I really, really love that. Now I'm actually going to use another one of his synths today to demo this. So what we're going to demo, just the Midi module. I have already done a demo on the other aspect of the app, the FX module. Sorry, I'm looking at the Midi module there. The FX module. So I made a video on that, I think when Mela 2 was released. So you can check out that video. This is really, really, really cool and powerful FX unit. So, Mela is like seriously one of the best bargains you can buy, I think, on the App Store. Having the synth, having a separate FX module, which you can apply to any synth, and then having this lovely Midi FX app or module or whatever, which itself is modular. You can have as many different modules as you like from the ones that are available. You can move them around in various ways. You can use more than one of any given type of module and so on. There's a lot of really, really, really cool stuff here. And the Midi module, like the synth and the FX module, also gives you control over exactly what you're seeing or not seeing at any given time. So that's really nice. Another thing I'll just mention briefly before we get stuck in is that when you resize, it may seem like there's a resizing problem or something, but there's not actually. Instead, all you have to do is basically pick. Oh, there's my dog coming into the bedroom. Pick an empty space in a part of the app that can be scrolled, like for example down here. Just press on an empty space and drag along. Hello, Casper. Please don't disturb my video too much. Okay, so for example here, if we see, there are actually a lot more presets than you might think initially. All right. So what I'm going to do in this video is first, I'm going to demo a bunch of the presets, and I'm going to explain something first because at least this patch that I'm using in NFM is not velocity sensitive. And a lot of synths are not velocity sensitive, actually. So one very useful tool, and I'm using it here, is Velocity Filter by Blue Mango. So this is important to add in here. Otherwise, a lot of these different presets that use various velocity modules or other things that affect velocity, you won't actually hear it. So the way we set this up, and by the way, if you're not familiar, what I'm using here as my host is AUM. And if you don't know how to use AUM or you don't understand how to route MIDI and things like that in AUM, I would strongly suggest watching my Almost Everything You Need to Know About AUM video, which has about more than 30,000 views at the moment. So obviously people are finding it helpful. But just briefly, one weird little kink of this velocity filter thing is that you need to route your MIDI source, which in this case is Sequence AU keys, which I've also done a video on and is a lovely keyboard. The only thing that annoys me about it is that it doesn't have a hold function, but apart from that, it is absolutely fantastic. So what we do here is we choose sequence keys as a source for velocity filter. and we choose sequence keys as a source for this. But sorry, I'm not going to do that there because I'm going to be choosing the Midi module as a source for that. And then what we'll do is we'll get velocity sensitivity. Okay, so that's important to point out. Now I'm going to run through each of the presets briefly, so you'll get an idea of what is going on. So let me just first juggle these things around a little bit. Try and see if we can get this seeing most of the screen. And I just drag this and make it a little bit smaller. The size of this is not really going to matter that much, so I can make it quite narrow actually. Okay, so let's go through some at least of the presets. I might not go through all of them. And then after we've done that, I will look at the presets in more detail, and in that way we'll come to understand the different modules that can be used. This is one of my favorites. Imagine how cool this would sound with something like chow tape on it doing a lovely tape effect. It's very kind of Boards of Canada. So you can pay attention while I'm going through these to whatever is going on here on the interface, give you some idea of what modules are being used. Oh, that reminds me of the Strokes. Modern Age, is it? All this one is doing is it's forcing all notes into the range between C3 and B4. That's a pretty simple one. This is a Midi logger. So for example, if you're getting problems with things like stuck notes and stuff like that, this can be useful to help analyze what's going on. Check my routing there because I'm not hearing any velocity randomization. Well, let's see later what might be going on there. This can be used to send out CC messages to control parameters, either in Mela itself, or perhaps you could use it to control parameters here in the Midi module, or in any other synth that you want.
This random module here is one of the absolute coolest things in this, and I'll go into that later. Extremely cool. I'll just mention, by the way, I mean, if you're a fan of Midi, things like Mosaic, for example, are great, right? And people have written so many patches for that, and you can download them free. But in terms of how nice an interface it is, I would rather use this any day than Mosaic. If I can do something with this that could do the same thing as whatever any given patch in Mosaic could do, then I would definitely choose this. Although I'm sure there are a lot of things that you can do in Mosaic that can't be done in this, in which case I would go for Mosaic. It's a great tool. I'm not using a mod wheel here, so this is not relevant, but this will basically add a bit of randomness into using a mod wheel. So you see, this is like a power chord with an echo. And if you see here, this is using note off. That's note on. Note off. Again, you can see this is very, very powerful. Very powerful. Something I'll look at later is what this delay slider is.
when we look at echoes or other time-based things. It's absolutely brilliant feature. This is just transposing pitch down an octave. Okay, so we've also got gating possibilities in there. So really, I really love this. Okay, let's see. So the first thing to note is up here we have a general module controlling gate rate and note length. Then here, this is our main place where we stack our modules. And okay, we can add modules. Like let's say, for example, I want to have an arpeggiator and I want to, well, let's take a different example actually, maybe. Let's say, for example, we've got a note echo and we want to quantize it to a certain scale. Then basically we just click on this plus and add in the scale module, and then we can custom set exactly what notes we want to be included in the scale, right? So this is how we add modules. Another thing we can do is we can just drag a module from one place into another place. Again, we can have several copies of a module. So we don't need to just have one scale module. We could have two scale modules if we wanted. Okay, now it's got its own keyboard down here that you can use if you want. It's got this inbuilt help section, which is really nice because it remembers the last position that it was at, which a lot of apps don't. And I always find it very annoying when they don't, especially when it's quite a long manual like this one. And we've got some settings here, including Nikolozi's social media links, an email link. So a lot of these things, I mean, there's just a lot of thought put into it. And Nikolozi is just so responsive, such a nice guy, really open to user feedback. So I love and respect that. Fair play, Nikolozi. Actually here, I forgot that we've actually got a mod wheel built in here. So let's see, random mod wheel. I haven't actually assigned it to anything. That patch is not responsive to mod wheels, so let's just forget about that. You know what it's doing anyway. Okay, so if we go back to the first preset, C major fun. Let's see. I mean, first of all, I've got this keyboard actually quantized to C major anyway. So listen to what we've got, so complex and beautiful with just one note being pressed. So why is that? Because basically here we're using a chord module, and it's been set up so that one note will play 4 notes, and the first note will be at the pitch of the note you play on your keyboard or that the sequencer feeds in. And then the second note will be pitched up 2 semitones, the next one pitched up 4 semitones, the next one 6 semitones. So here we have 2 octaves up and down as our choices. And we can also change the velocity of each note, so we get something a bit more human. And by the way, we could also modulate these velocities even within Mela Midi itself, to get something more humanized. So that's brilliant. So we've got first a chord being generated from one or more notes. I mean, we could get massive chords going from just a few notes. So we can hear there without the arp. And so here we've got the arp. So the arp has different modes. Okay, the usual up, down, up and then down, down then up and down and up, random, chord. And here we choose our octave range. Now, one very cool thing is with some of the time-based knobs, like the rate here, for example. Let's see what happens when I drag this knob while playing. Watch this. This is actually a feature. This is what I mean. Nikolozi is very responsive because he implemented this after I asked for it a few months ago. So did you see what happened there? While I was dragging this knob, the rate did not change until I released my finger, or in this case, my mouse, from the knob. Let's look at that again. You know, this is really, really useful. You see how, you know, if we time our changes to, for example, the start of a new bar, then we can get beautifully musical changes in rate. So many, this is what really pisses me off sometimes about iOS. I feel that so many devs are just not taking advantage of the touchscreen enough. And one of the beautiful things about the touchscreen is it doesn't have to act like an analog knob. So, I mean, there's so many different apps that would benefit from allowing you to only change a value when you release the knob. I really, really wish that more devs would implement this. So great, great feature. Thank you very much, Nikolozi, for listening to me and getting, you know, how useful this would be. So if you notice here, this is also changing the note length up here. Basically up here, we sort of have something like a kind of little macros panel. Okay, now then we've got our note echo. And if we want, we can just have the echo. Or we can pass the original MIDI through and have our echo. So when we look at the sync, we can see that we only have straight values. There's nothing dotted, no triplets, and so on. At first, when I saw that, I was like, what? You know, how come there are no dotted delays and stuff here? But no, actually, it's even better than that because that's what this delay thing does. So here, I mean, we can not only have dotted, for example, or triplets or whatever, we can actually have really any kind of complex delay time that we like. Another thing, by the way, is that if you tap on a value, you can enter the value manually on your keyboard. So sometimes that's, for getting precise values, that can be a lot easier than using a slider. So I think that's great. So we can see that here it's just a little bit off. And we can control things like the number of repeats. We can control how much each successive echo will change in terms of pitch. So for example, we could have no pitch change. Sorry. Or we could, for example, put like, say, 7 semitones. But I mean, here we have a scale module, so that'll also quantize that. Which is very important, actually, because if you don't have a scale module quantizing something like that, you're going to end up with a lot of unmusical results that you may not want, depending on the situation. So notice, by the way, that this is one of the knobs that does respond to being turned immediately. The value changes immediately, not on release. So we can choose, decide whether we want the velocity to increase with each delay or decrease with each delay. We can offset the velocity. And we can add a certain amount of randomness to velocity. Again, very nice. And again, the scale, custom scale, just enter the notes that you want. So here, if I play a C, no matter what I've got set up in terms of the pitch ramps for the note echo, everything will be quantized to a C major scale. And you can decide what will happen to notes that fall outside the scale. For example, will they go to the nearest note below that's in the scale? Or, will they go up or whatever? Or will they just be deleted? Okay, so that's that module. And I'm not going to go through every module. I'll only look at, ones that we haven't covered. So the pitch module, very simple. Just change the pitch of the incoming MIDI up or down. You've got a range of 2 octaves. Notice here also we've got this MIDI input selector and MIDI output selector. Pitch range, okay, so we looked a little bit at this when we played the preset that used that. So we can either filter out notes within a certain range. So if we chose filter here, any notes that we played that were between C3 and B3 would just not be heard. But if we choose transpose, any notes we play outside that, like let's say, for example, we play a C2, well, it's just going to play it as a C3. Let's say you play, you know, a D6, it's going to be transposed to a D3, right? So that's pretty simple. We've already looked at note echo. Note echo again here. Okay, we got our ARP and note echo, all things that we've looked at. The logger, again, as I mentioned, I think earlier, useful for diagnosing problems like stuck notes and things like that. Okay, so let's look at this random module. So do you see how these have these little white things, right? That's showing the modulation, which is coming from this randomization module. Now, the randomization module has two views. So if we look here, this is basically where we choose the targets. Okay, so we could have some velocity related things like offset or random addition of velocity. Various things here related to the randomizer itself. I think this module, actually, I haven't explored very much, even though it's the coolest thing, because it just got added recently. And the last time that I played with this synth, I don't think it even had this module. So I'm not super familiar with it yet either. But let's look then here. So let's play around a little bit with the intensities. So this is the length of the ARP. And we can go back here and change the depth of that. And the polarity. See, this is bipolar. Everything here will be below the line. Everything here is going to be above this line. And control the rate of our randomization. So beautiful module, that beautiful. Just checking here if there's anything that we haven't looked at. No. Again, so much is going to matter on how you select the order of the modules in certain cases anyway. So it's interesting to play around with those. I'm not going to get into the CC perform. It's just going to make the video too long. There's one more. Okay, yeah. I think if we look at this one, I think we'll have looked at all the modules. Let me just see here. Velocity scale, random, pitch range, pitch, note length, note echo, logger, control change, chord, and ARP. Yes. So this is the last one that I'm going to look at because I don't want to make the video too long. So here we have two random modules. So again, if we want to see what is being randomized, click here. For some reason, I'm having to click on that a few times with the mouse. So our modulation target here is the repeats on the note echo and the delay. So like I say, tonight is the first time I explored this module, first time I even noticed it was here. I'm really looking forward to playing around with that more. It is very, very cool. And it's just lovely to have this. I love how this has been done with the ability to jump between those two windows and get a visualization of things. As well as being able to see that modulation in the modules that we're modulating. One thing that really bugs me is when an app has modulation, but you can't actually visualize it on the interface. So there we go, ladies and gentlemen. Again, that's just the Midi module. If you want to learn more about the FX module, go and check out the video that I made on that, even though there's probably a few new things added, I would imagine, in Mela 3. And overall, just really a synth that is worth getting. Highly recommended, highly recommended. There's been a lot of nice improvements also on the preset menus and things like import and export of presets and stuff like that has been improved a lot. So hope you enjoyed this, and I'll see you in the next video. Take it easy, folks. One thing I will mention, by the way, I put up a video a few days ago about an app that is about to get an update that's going to make it 100 times cooler. I've had a few people asking me, hey, why are you leaving us waiting? We really want to know what this app is. Thing is that it did seem like it was ready for prime time at that time. And I was expecting the update to hit the App Store very quickly. In fact, the update did hit the App Store, but very few people were paying attention. I'm still not telling you what that video was, but I will make a walkthrough on it when it's ready for prime time. A few bugs have been identified that need to be fixed, but yeah, okay, 100 times better, maybe slight exaggeration, but nevertheless, it is a very cool update, and I'll tell you more about that in that video when the app is finally got everything perfect enough to make a video on it. All right, see you in the next video. Cheers.